Good day, folks. Welcome to Application Project 1. The objective of the project is for you to be able to apply the concepts that we discussed in class to a real company using real data. Application Project 1 is worth 10 points or 10% of your grade, so please consider it within that context. There are three distinct parts of this project, and the points and instructions for each of them are identified. It's due no later than 11:59 on June 4th, 2020. That means you just need to submit it by that date. So if you're planning your time and organizing your time and balancing it with everything going on in life, you have sufficient time to get this done. The submission format is PowerPoint. You're free to use audio or video comments to explain things if you like. So how are we going to grade the project? The first thing is organization and presentation. This is a big piece of any communication, is how well organized and presented it is. Because communication demonstrates understanding, okay? And that can be things simply as rounding, organization, use of visuals, colors, etc. Accuracy of any computations and formulas needs to work. That's important. Clarity and depth of responses. Do you really understand it? Ask a question of yourself to go one step further. Are you making a statement, or is it really forcing you to ask another question? This becomes, if I'm looking at my experiences with this class, is most folks get this accuracy of computation and formulas. That's not as big a deal. But the clarity and depth of responses around it is the weakness in the area that if people are going to get marked off, it's going to be in this area. The next thing is integration of topics. How does one area impact another? Everything we do in financial statement analysis is interrelated with other things. Very little stands on its own. So we're not looking to just answer questions. We're looking at something, trying to get an overall picture and interpret it. So that's how we will grade it. And you're going to be working on one company throughout the next 6 weeks. And you have your choice of any of these four companies: Valero, Spirit Air, Home Depot. There's another company, the Ciena company, CIEN is its ticker symbol, and this is a little bit different. And if you really want to challenge and want to learn, it's a fascinating company. And in fact, it is one of the few companies in the equity markets today that is actually continuing to go up. I want you to focus on a company that's easy to understand, that doesn't have a lot of complexities to it. It'll help you understand. When we look at some of the bigger companies, there's so many different product lines that really understanding how it works just doesn't do it. If you want to select your own company, please let me know before you do work on it, and we can decide if that's right. But that's an option for you too. What are the mechanics? First thing is, where do you get the information for this project? I want you to use the 10K or 10Q and the investor presentation, okay, as we discussed in the topic sources of information. This will be the source of everything. Part 1, the company and how they make money. 5 points. What's the company's name and logo? What are the products and services sold by the company? What do they sell? Who are their customers? Think carefully, not always the end user. Okay? An example may be Valero produces oil and gasoline, but the driver of a car is generally not the end consumer. So just think about that a little bit. What makes the company unique? What makes them special? And the last point is, how do they make money? Well, that seems pretty easy, but not always the case. So you want to make sure you watch the module that talks about how does a company make money. So you want to describe the revenue drivers. What are those volume and rate things that when you multiply them out give you sales? So always think of something times a rate. What is that volume? And when you multiply them out, you should get total sales. Now, some companies go to much deeper depth, have multiple products, which you will see, and others have very simple. But always try to figure out can you really, if you're going to change them, how would you change them? Is there a false one out there? And let me just throw one out for you if you're going to take Spirit Air. It's not the number of flights. Company doesn't make money by flying planes. Okay. Then show how you multiply the volume driver and rate driver to get you close to sales, 2 years. And this section should be 2 to 4 slides, not much more. Let me give you an example of what I mean on this. The name of this company is Destination Extra Large. And what you can see is I used a mixture of words and pictures. And they have 345 stores. They have a unique customer. Males of all ages, waist size 38 and up. I'm trying to communicate visually. Customer values convenience, comfort, selection, and fit over price. This is what makes their business model very unique. Here's their products. And again, it's trying to create an image for you. When we look at the stores, they have wide aisles, large changing rooms, on-site tailoring, more brands, bright atmosphere. So this gives you a picture of who their customer is, what their products are. How do they make money? Pretty straightforward. They have stores, and it's sales per store. So if I look, in February of 18, they had 342 stores, average sales of 1.36 million, and when I do the computation, I come out pretty much the same. So if I want to grow Destination Extra Large, I can either increase the number of stores or I can sell more in a store. Those are my only 2 ways I can grow. So when we look at their strategy, we want to say, what are they going to do to open stores? What are they going to do to sell more in each store? Next example is one that we'll be following throughout the semester, and that's Steel Dynamics. And again, when we take a look at it, we can see what they produce, what their products are, types of steel. Here's their sales by end market, so we get a sense of big something, who they are. They're diversified. Their products, okay, and their biggest product here is flat roll. So I put a picture of flat roll steel in. Who's their customer? Well, I identified it by industry type. And most of this I found in the investor presentation or the 10K. Now, it's a little different. How do they make money? Well, this is where you got to take a look through the 10K. Really read the 10K before you get started. And what I found when I read it is this piece here, other operating information, and a lot of companies have this, sales price per ton. So if this is the sales price per ton, I had to look at what is the amount, how much tonnage did they produce? Because here I see a volume, tons are a volume. Here is a per ton of sales price. So I can come here and say, okay, tons of steel, 2,489,000 right here, $988 a ton, and my computed sales and my report. There's a difference. I won't hit it all, but this gives me a basic sense of how they make money. So if we're looking at sales and we're looking at how they make money, it's the number of tons of steel sold and how much they sell it for. I then was able to go down and look at it by business. And then I was able to do some computation, which you'll do in the next project, that breaks the change in sales down to an amount attributable to volume and attributable to rate. And I found a graph. So what I concluded here is strong domestic demand coupled with lower imports resulted in imported increased demand, and I was able to get a better price because the competitors, which were foreign steel companies, now had to pay a tariff coming in, or the consumer, U.S. consumer had to pay, U.S. customer, and that enabled the company to raise their prices. They also went from utilizing 92% of their capacity to 96%. Now this means there was a lot of fixed cost that they were able to grow their business without making a lot of capital expenditures. This is going to limit future sales growth because when they're running at 96, they only have capacity for 4% more growth. So you can't run always a factory at 100%, but you can't go beyond that tons. That's limited. This right up here, this just about 10,000 million tons, that's about their limit. So they're going to have to make an investment to go forward. So that's that section. Next section is, what's their strategy? What are they going to do to build the company? What I want you to do is identify 3 strategies the company is planning on to implement the growth of revenues. Focus on revenues. We don't care about what, at this point, what they're going to do with expenses. What are they going to do to grow revenue? Controlling expenses is a short-term exercise. Again, you can find this in investor presentation. Here's the investor slides. You don't need to always recreate something. You just need to identify what it is. Then relate to the investor presentation slides to the volume and rate drivers you identified. So if you can't take a strategy and say, is this going to affect the rate or the volume, then you haven't determined either the right rate drivers or the strategy isn't getting you to what you need to know how to grow the business. And then do quantitive future impact. If they're going to open 10 new stores and each store is going to sell $2 million, well, then that's in revenue is going to increase by 20. But when we're doing financial statement analysis, this is different than you get into accounting. We're trying to analyze the company. And if we need to understand what these rate and volume drivers, but what is it that the company is doing? So this is for Steel Dynamics. They're going to expand existing capacity by building new lines and mills. They're going to expand their product lines by acquiring companies, and there's a list. The risks, long-term framework to construct new facility. It takes time to build a plant, and the market demand may change. And what we're seeing with COVID-19 clearly has changed that. Ability to keep projects within budgets. Ability to find acquisitions at a fair price. So that's the summary of what they're going to do. But this is right out of their investor presentation. These are the things they're going to do. Okay? And they're giving you dates. When is this going to be implemented? Okay? So we're able to evaluate it, and how does that relate to drivers? Second one, expand value-added products, higher margin by growing organically within. They're focused on markets that are poised for growth, increase utilization, increase sales of about 750. So they told me, risk to strategy, market demand. And again, this walks me through, and you can see that with the utilization, here it is, plan to sell 100,000 tons, plan to supply 150 to 200, increase production up to 240. So now I know what they're doing to drive the volume. Okay? I'm trying to understand the company because we can't just look at the financial numbers. Last thing, one point. The current pandemic has caused significant harm to the economy and the way business is done. Every company is going to be faced with additional risks as a result of this. Some of them are on sales, markets, customer demand. Some may be on costs. If we have to implement certain social distancing issues, will certain materials cost more or less? Okay. Some might be on human capital. And in the current environment, do they have enough cash to get them through this period with limited or no sales? So what I want you to do is to identify 2 specific risks your company is facing today. Then put it all together in a presentation and submit it no later than June 4th at 11:59. If you have questions, what should you expect with this project from a time perspective? The first thing you really need to do, read the investor presentation in the 10K. Don't try to complete the project by glancing over it. Sit down and read it. I suggest you take about 90 minutes just reading before you do anything. Understand the company. Be wary about hanging on to too narrow a piece of information. Okay? This is going to help you in application project 2, application project 3, and on quizzes. Very important. Everything you need is going to be in these documents. Okay? Everything will be there. Project should take you 2 to 3 hours to do after you've spent 90, including the 90 minutes that you spent. Take the time up front and think. It's important to think. Get into the 10K. At least see how it's organized. What is the things the company is doing? What is the company talking about? How does what they're talking about relate to the financial statements? If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to review your project before you submit it. If you'd like, just let me know.